Hey Jackets fans, welcome to Boom and Gloom, a Columbus Blue Jackets fan podcast where I discuss the boom, the good, and the gloom, the bad, of CBJ hockey. I'm your host Anthony. You can find me on social media using the handle Whaler Jacket, a name that honors my two favorite hockey teams of all time. But it is also a badge of dishonor, as I consider myself Ohio's longest suffering hockey fan. One playoff series win for my favorite team in 40 years of watching NHL hockey. And I'm already very concerned that it will be 41 years when April of 2026 rolls around. The Blue Jackets have had, in my opinion, a very underwhelming start to the season. Certain players have stood out to me, most of them not in a good way, and I will get to that in a bit. But overall, I just don't have a good feeling in my gut about how the rest of the season is going to play out. Last season was a feel-good story, and just about every player cranked it up a notch and had career years. It was inevitable that many would take a step back this season. Now, as I get into this episode, a couple things. First of all, the last time I recorded, I was a little bit under the weather. Turns out I had pneumonia, and I actually am still battling it. So I will do my best to keep my coughing fits to a minimum, and I will pause the recording, hopefully, if I do start coughing. And the other thing is, I prepared most of these notes for this episode right before the Dallas game, where the Jackets played exceptionally well and kind of changed my outlook a little bit. So I'll kind of work that into this episode. I do have a lot of gloomy things to talk about, but last night against the Dallas Stars, that was definitely a source of optimism, a much needed source of optimism. Well, first of all, you know who has not taken a step back so far this season? That would be Kirill Marchenko. The dude is playing some of the best hockey I've seen him play. And honestly, he looks like he could pot 40 goals this season. I've noticed him playing more physical and more aggressive as well. He has this this air about him that he it's like he knows he's on the cusp of greatness and he wants it. And I love it. And yet he still maintains that good-natured, down-to-earth personality. I just absolutely love watching his interviews. I mean, the dude, he just loves the game. He loves his team, his teammates, and he loves the city and the fans. I think we got a real winner in Kirill Marchenko, and I just hope that he continues this trajectory that he currently appears to be on. Wherever you are right now, whatever you might be doing while listening, please find some wood and knock on it. So I started off with a positive there. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I have plenty of gloom to share with you. But I wanted to share another positive. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but the play of our goaltenders. Jed Greaves, and yes, I am surprising myself a little by saying this, but Elvis Merzlikins. So far, the Jackets have consistently alternated goaltenders each game, and both have stood up to the task. I mean, Greaves did let in a softie against Tampa Bay, but overall did a fine job. Let in 2 goals. That's it. Statistically, he is right up there with some of the upper echelon goaltenders in the NHL. And Elvis, I mean, he has performed admirably as well, especially last night. Last night against Dallas. What stands out to me is that I have yet to call for his head. I have yet to watch him play this season and shake my fist in the general direction of Jarmo Kekalainen for signing him to the massive deal he currently plays for. I almost did it during the first period against Dallas, where he sent the puck. He was like in the corner and he sent the puck through the slot. That could have been bad, but luckily it panned out. No harm done. Wherever you are right now, whatever you might be doing while listening, please find some wood and knock on it. Another bright spot is Charlie Coyle. I have really liked what I've seen from him. I've liked the veteran presence that he has brought to the lineup. I love the confidence that he shows. I love how he can be used in virtually all situations. But I still think the Jackets gave up far too much to acquire him. But if he continues his strong play, my strong opinion about that will hopefully weaken over time. So there you have it. There are some positives to start off the podcast, but I'm sorry to say, folks, I have a lot to complain about. Now, again, compiled a lot of this prior to the Dallas game. That game made me very happy, but I don't want to think, okay, they played one really good game. Now the ship has been righted. I still think there's some cause for concern. As I said, I've been, up until last night, been very underwhelmed by the Jackets' start to the season. The 3-game homestand was kind of like a microcosm for what I expect the season to be like as a whole. The Jackets lost to the Devils, didn't play horribly, but didn't do enough right to move the needle in their favor and get the win. And then they just flat out ran into a freight train that is the Colorado Avalanche. For about a period, they seemed to hold their own. Then it was just all Colorado, no chance. They played extensive stretches in the Jackets' end, and it was like nothing could be done to generate any offensive pressure or any cohesion whatsoever with the lines. And then, of course, came Tampa Bay. I had a very bad feeling going into that night that the Jackets would be finishing the homestand 0-3. But I believe the Jackets caught a little bit of a break. No Vasilevsky and no Kucherov. That was a big help. And they squeaked out a 3-2 victory, and I do mean squeaked out. There was a big part of me that thought at any moment the Lightning would score with their goaltender pulled. I mean, they had a ton of pressure during those last 2 minutes. Luckily, Jet Greaves stood tall, and the Jackets pulled it out. I would not call that an impressive victory by any means, but it was a victory against a very good team, and hopefully that will continue to be something that they can build on. They built on it, I'm assuming, with the Dallas game last night. That was certainly a step in the right direction. Now, going back to the Colorado game for a second, you know who looked pretty darn good for the Avalanche? Not out of place at all? Gavin Brindley. If you listen to the episode, my episode, that I put out shortly after the Charlie Coyle trade, you'll already know my thoughts on this, okay? We gave up on Brindley. The Jackets gave up on Brindley way too early. If the Colorado Avalanche, a top 10 team in the league, have a spot in their lineup for him, then I think that just proves we gave up on him too early. Now, I like Charlie Coyle, and even Miles Wood so far. But I wish the Jackets did not have to throw Brindley into that deal. You know, my argument is he was I know he's undersized. I get that, all right? But he was regarded as a steal when the Jackets drafted him early in the second round. Then suddenly he was expendable? Yeah, I mean, I know he didn't have the best season in the AHL last year, but I mean, that's how it is with young players. A lot of them have growing pains. It takes time to develop. Now, he plays a regular shift for one of the top teams in the league. He's already had his first NHL goal in his first 6 games. And I'm not saying the dude is going to be a full-blown superstar in the league, all right? I just wish he was given a little more time with the Jackets organization. I would have loved to see him play with his buddy Adam Fantilli. I just think back to that draft and how happy they were. How happy they were to discover that they were drafted. They were both drafted by the same team. And I know it's a business. I know the NHL hockey is a business. So I can't let things like that overshadow the the real reasons why that trade was made. But it still bugs me. And I'm not the GM. And Don Waddell, for some reason, never calls me to get my opinions on potential trades. But I guess I'll just have to live with this one. All right. Well, let's talk more about the gloom that I was referring to regarding the CBJ. Up until last night, do you know what was absolutely atrocious? The Blue Jackets special teams. I mean, my goodness. Giving up 4 power play goals to Minnesota? Wow. I can't remember exactly, but at one point, the Jackets had given up like 7 total goals to start the season, and I think one of them was 5-on-5. Something like that. Just absolutely miserable. I get this horrible sense of dread each and every time the Jackets get a penalty, which is far too often, by the way. The Jackets need to do 2 things. Number 1, stay out of the box, and number 2, do better at penalty killing. And they really, really, really need to be better on the power play. In fact, before last night, not only did the Jackets rank dead last in the league in penalty killing, but they also ranked dead last in power play percentage. How on earth can a team be that bad with special teams? I just don't get it. I cannot wrap my head around it. I mean, when was the last time a team was ranked dead last in both power play and penalty kill? I don't know. I'm not going to look it up, but it surely has been a while. How does this happen? You have the likes of Marchenko, Werenski, Monahan, and you're dead last? Dead last? What makes my blood boil even more is the fact that this franchise has existed for 25 years. And in those 25 years, they have had what I would call a good power play for maybe a few months, a stretch of a few months. And I believe that was way back when Sam Gagner was on the team. Different players, different coaches, different systems, yet a bad Blue Jackets power play is just as definite as death and taxes. Just so frustrating. It makes no sense to me. You would think that at some point over 25 years, they would have lucked into having the right personnel, the right chemistry, the right coaching, all in place to succeed at least once. One season. At least one season where their power play was consistently good. But somehow, some way, they have managed to consistently suck. It's just one of those things that it's just mind-boggling, baffling. Just we'll never figure it out. Why is it just never clicked? By mere chance, you would think at some point the Jackets would have stumbled onto something that worked for them. But no. I want you to think back for a second here, okay? Think back to the Jackets' first season in the league. Now let's pretend for a moment that there was some kind of contest where you had to guess which season in their first 25 years of existence would they have a top 10 power play in the league. Everyone would lose. It is crazy to think that a quarter of a century has gone by and they haven't been able to figure out how to run an effective power play as a franchise. It's just nuts. And now, at least before last night, we're dead last in the league. I contend, all right, the Jackets are 3-3 right now. I contend that if the Jackets had even a middle of the road, like middle of the league, medium level special teams, they would be at least 4-2 at this point, probably 5-1. Yeah, I said it and I mean it. I think they would be 5-1 if they had a competent power play and a much better penalty kill. That would also mean they would currently have one of the best records in the league. So when you look at it that way, special teams have let this team down that much. So hopefully last night was a turning point and they'll move in a more positive direction and we'll start seeing success on the power play and shorthanded. But my hopes are not high. History has taught me not to get my hopes high. All right, some other letdowns. We do have some underperforming players right now. Sean Monahan has 1 point, got an assist last night, so that was his first point. 1 point in 6 games. You can't expect to win a lot of games when your number one center doesn't score any points. And how about that number 2 center? Until that Dallas game, Adam Fantilli had only scored 1 goal. And if you recall, that was a fluky one that kind of like barely grazed off his leg and went into the net. Thankfully, he seems to be turning things around, and I'll get to that in a moment. Zach Werenski, I don't know what's up with him, but he has been noticeably un-Zach Werenski-like. I don't know what it is, but he doesn't seem to be dominating, like controlling the play like he did last year. So I'm not sure if something's up or maybe he's just going through a slump. Not sure. But what all that means is that you have some of your biggest scoring threats are not being very threatening right now. So hopefully these players will wake up soon. Otherwise, I don't see this team having sustained success. When your best players are not being the best players, you're not going to have sustained success. Part of the problem, I hate to say it, has been coaching, at least with some of the players. Now, everyone knows I am a huge Dean Evison fan, but that doesn't mean I can't disagree with him. And I disagreed wholeheartedly how he assembled the lines during the first 4 games of the season. My biggest complaint was Kent Johnson on the third line. Holy cow, did that drive me nuts. That was a mistake. Someone of his creativity and vision needs to be playing on a line with players that can benefit from that. Players who can put the puck in the net. Charlie Coyle and Matthew Olivier, who I love, are just not those players. And Cole Sillinger is absolutely 100% not a second line winger. He looked completely out of place on that line. I've joked on social media before about why does it seem like we the fans often figure these things out faster than the coaching staff, the paid professionals. I'd been calling for Johnson to be reunited with Fantilli for the first 4 games. And other fans agreed with me. Evason finally puts them back together in the Tampa game, I believe. And it took them all of 5 minutes. 5 minutes to put the puck in the net. And then, 5 minutes into the Dallas game, they do it again. They strike again, and Fantilli scored. Assisted by, you guessed it, Kent Johnson and Boone Jenner. Let me ask you, how should I, a 49-year-old beer league hockey player, know this was going to be successful, and yet an NHL coaching staff couldn't figure it out? But yeah, Sillinger has been demoted. And I hate to say it, I like Sillinger, but, oh gosh, I hope I don't catch a lot of heat for saying this, but he is just not showing he is worth the number 12 overall pick in that draft. In fact, I could argue that he could be dropped to the 4th line and the team would be no worse off. No better either, but no worse. Sillinger is just like, he's just there. Like just your basic average 3rd or 4th line NHL player. He's interchangeable. I don't know how else to say it. He doesn't impress me with his physical play. He doesn't impress me with his stick handling. He doesn't impress me with his shooting or passing. He's just there. And again, I like the guy, all right? I mean, he's fine. But Evason should have never started him on the 2nd line. He does not belong there. And let's take a look at the Yegor Chinakhov situation. In my last episode, I expressed how I hoped he and the Jackets could work it out. And he would play himself, earn a more prominent role in the lineup. Well, that hasn't happened at all. My dog is squeaking her toy. I apologize if that's coming through. So here's what has happened. He was a healthy scratch for the first 3 games. The only reason he hasn't been a healthy scratch the last 3 is due to the injury to Miles Wood. So many of us fans hope that, given this opportunity, Chinny would ramp up his game and take advantage of being in the lineup to impress the coaching staff. But he really hasn't. In fact, he hasn't been given much ice time at all. Not enough to make any good impression. He's looked rusty and out of place, if you ask me. Now, granted, being thrown onto the 4th line doesn't help. You can't really showcase your skills if you're not given ample ice time and teammates who work well with you. Now, that said, he looked better last night. He did have an assist, a nice assist on the Denton Mateychuk goal. He was set up. I forget who sent the puck across to him, but he was set up perfectly for a goal, and he shot it into Jake Ottinger's pads. I kind of attributed that to being rusty, gripping his stick a little too tight, trying a little too hard maybe. So I can understand that, but I bet it certainly didn't help his situation. So you have to look at it this way. If they continue to go the way they're going, is Chinakhov ever going to do enough to get into the coach's good graces? Is he ever going to be given enough opportunity and make enough of that opportunity to be moved up to the top 6 or we'll even say the top 9? I don't think so. I don't see how he's going to dig himself out of this. Therefore, I'm sad to say this, but I think it's pretty obvious now that Yegor Chinnikov needs to move on. He needs to be traded. He needs a fresh start somewhere else. Maybe it was just, something that could not be overcome with Dean Evison and the coaching staff. But he definitely needs to move on. Hopefully Don Waddell is actively seeking a trade, because aside from, a little spark he had last night, he has virtually no value to the team. I mean, he's a body in the lineup, and I fully believe that when Miles Wood returns, which could be the next game, I feel like he's going to be the healthy scratch. It just hasn't worked out, and that sucks. Because he started off last season on fire. I mean, he has so much potential, and it made us Jackets fans think like, wow, Jarmo really found a diamond in the rough with him. It's really, it really might pan out with this guy. And I fear that wherever he ends up, he's going to blossom into the player that we all hoped he would be. And that will leave us fans wondering why we couldn't make it work here. And that will make fans like me frustrated. So I'm calling it right now. He is going to go somewhere else and become a good player. Maybe not a superstar, but I bet he's going to be a solid NHL top 6 forward. Just my prediction, of course. It's just a shame. He has the skill set to be a top 6 winger in the NHL. It's just not going to be for the Blue Jackets. But I'll say this. I do hope I'm wrong. Let me talk about another player, actually in a positive light, and that would be my buddy, Damon Severson. I have never hid my feelings about Damon Severson. I think he is extremely overpaid. I think Jarmo did this team an extreme disservice by signing him to the contract he was signed to. I think he has made some boneheaded decisions during his first few seasons. I think he's deserved the healthy scratches that he's gotten. I think he's been inconsistent and oftentimes more of a liability than a benefit to the team. But I have to say, he has not been horrible this season. He has certainly not blown the roof off the buildings. He has certainly not impressed me. I've not been impressed with him. He's certainly not lived up to his huge contract. But I will say he has been solid. The dude has been solid. He has been a better player this season. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Now, do I still wish the Jackets somehow moved on from him this summer? Absolutely. In fact, I think one of the biggest reasons the Jackets are not seen by more people as playoff bound this year, or just a more of a lock for the playoffs, is because Don Waddell did not upgrade the team's defense. We have trotted out the same defense as last year, and let's be honest, the defense was not necessarily a bright spot last year. The Jackets' offense bailed them out more nights than not. And now it appears we are stuck with what we have. Severson and Provorov both have no movement clauses and would have to agree to any trade Don Waddell makes. And let's be honest here. Do you see them wanting to move to a different team? Provorov's wife is expecting and seems to love the city of Columbus. Severson is making a nice paycheck and currently playing on the second pair. So unless it's at the trade deadline and one of the two desperately wants to go to a contender, we're stuck with them. We rightfully would not want to move Werenski or Matejchuk. So that means if the Jackets defense is going to be upgraded at any point this season, Fabro, Goodbranson, and Christensen Those are the three. One of those three or more would have to be moved. But my money is on this 7-player defensive core remaining as it is for the entirety of the season, for better or for worse. All right, one more thing I want to talk about, and because I have not done an episode since Game 1, I want to go back to the season opener at Nashville. I don't complain too often about officiating. They make good calls sometimes, they make bad calls sometimes. They're human, it happens. But with technology, in this particular game, the Jackets got flat out hosed. Matthew Olivier puts the puck in the net with less than 30 seconds left in the second period, and the goal gets called back because of goaltender interference. I'm sorry, but I have watched that replay several times, and I do not see how Olivier prevented Soros, I think it was Soros, from making that save. That's the definition of goaltender interference, right? When the goaltender is unable to make a save because an opposing player interferes. Right? Well, I flat out disagree with that call. I do not see how Olivier prevented the goalie from making the save. And unfortunately, that changed the whole dynamic of the game. Instead of the Jackets going to the locker room with a 1-goal lead and coming out in the third period with a 1-goal lead, a position of strength, they start with a tied game. The whole complexion of the game was changed due to that bad call. The Jackets' record should potentially be 2 points better than 2 points better than it is now. Plus, here's the other thing that grinds my gears. It was called a goal on the ice. So that means Toronto had to see irrefutable evidence to enough to overturn that call. I didn't see any such evidence. I was shocked and continue to believe the Jackets were screwed out of at least 1 point that game. But of course, that's par for the course with the Jackets. Is there a team that has worse luck with overturned calls? By my count, and I admit I could be off on this, but the Jackets have already had 3 goals called back this season. That has to be the most in the NHL. Has to be. I still think, I forget which game it was, the goal that went off Voronkov's chest and into the net, and that got called back. I think that was a goal. How that he didn't hit it with his hand. It just bounced off his chest and went in. That should have been a goal. But I can't argue that one as much as I can the Olivier goal in Nashville. That was ridiculous. All right, other news to share. Apparently, the Edmonton Oilers had a goaltender scout in the building for Elvis Merzlikins' last start at Nationwide. So that has fueled some speculation that Edmonton may be interested in Elvis. My take on this, if this is true, take what you can get for Elvis and move on. Take it and run. Sure, he's playing well right now. Okay, last night against Dallas, he played a great game. But you can't trust the guy. How long before the Elvis we all know comes back? He has to be one of the most inconsistent goaltenders in the league. He should have never been signed to that massive contract, and in my opinion, more of an effort should have been made to trade him in recent years. In my humble opinion, of course. So now, if you're offered something for him, you take what you can get. If someone makes an offer, take it. I know it's early, small sample size, but Jet seems to be able to handle number 1 duties. You still have Fedotov in Cleveland. You let him back up Greaves, or you sign or trade for a low-cost veteran, and you roll with it. To me, the Elvis Merzlikins experiment should have ended a long time ago. The leash he was given has been way too long for far too long. So it's time to move on from him and get whatever assets you can, especially now that he's playing well. Sell high. Get some better assets than you would if it was, the normal Elvis allowing 6 goals a game or whatever it is. And finally, how awesome was it to see Cam Atkinson in a Blue Jackets jersey one last time? My only complaint about how the Jackets handled that situation, I wish he would have been allowed to take warm-ups with the team in addition to doing his lap. It would have been awesome to, see him skating around with his teammates, stick in hand, taking shots like the old days, with the rest of the team. I know something like that can disrupt the flow, disrupt the routine of a team. About to play a hockey game. I get that. But man, that would have been cool. But even without it, it was still so cool. I mean, I love that he took his time as he skated around and really took it all in. It was just so great to see. And I admit I teared up a bit watching it. He was just he was a big part of that 2019 team that swept Tampa in the first round. And he's just one of those guys who is just a Blue Jacket, a Blue Jacket through and through. I'm just so glad he retired where he should have retired. And I hope that the team finds a way to employ the man in some capacity. I just think he's a great ambassador for the team and for the city. So take advantage of that, Blue Jackets. Give him a position in the organization somewhere. All right, my friends, that's all I got for today. Thanks for stopping in to listen to me rant and rave about the Jackets. Feel free to reach out and connect with me. You can find me at Whaler Jacket on sites like Instagram and Blue Sky. Or you can just send me an old-fashioned email to whalerjacket@gmail.com. I welcome your comments, your questions, your suggestions, your thoughts. The whole reason I do this podcast is because I love talking about the Blue Jackets. But I don't really have anyone to talk about them with. This is my outlet. It allows me to talk about the Jackets. So, please, feel free to reach out and talk with me. I hope to see you next time on Boom and Gloom. Until then, go Jackets.